Hello, 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 home care breakthrough family. It feels like forever since I've gone live. So it's been a little bit. Lots of stuff going on, lots of exciting stuff. Whoo! I feel like I have so much to catch everyone up on, but a couple really exciting things going on. We rolled out a program for those of you that are looking to grow and scale your business. And try to generate more referrals. We actually put a guarantee behind it because we know the process and the system works. So I've been working on for a while. We just added a bunch of new clients for that. So I'm excited. The holidays are here. I will be rolling out my book here in the next few weeks. So I'm super excited about that. So I've been working on that on the back end. I see Natalie's on here. Hey, Natalie. Our mastermind groups have been going really, really well. I've just been swamped. So I wanted to hop on here because this is a key strategy that helped me with understanding how to scale a business. And part of it depends on what phase in business you're at. And what I mean by that is really understanding and knowing like, hey, I might sell in the next 3 to 5 years. I might sell in the next 3 to 10 years, but really the strategy I'm going to teach applies to everyone, and it's really relevant if you intend on selling anytime. We're going to say in like the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-ish years. All right, it's all about scaling. So when someone goes to sell a company, there's things that the buyers look for, right? They look for stability, they look for growth, they look for a little bit of diversity in terms of like where the business is coming from. And they look for opportunities, like how can I take this business and make it bigger? You know, the assumption with the buyers, I'm going to buy the business and I'm going to grow it. Now, you guys, if you want to increase not only the value of your company, but the profitability long term. All right. And what I mean by that is, let me just kind of get into it. Right. So there's this key strategy I did a big post about this a couple weeks ago. Right. And you guys have heard me talk about it before, but oftentimes when I mention this, people don't really understand like how to use this to manage their business. You guys have heard me many times talk about the concept of understanding a lifetime value of your client. Right. When you understand the lifetime value of a client and you make decisions based on that, it actually can change the game for you, can help you scale your business. And I'm going to get into some of the nitty gritty on this conversation today, but I wanted to talk about it because I did the post and there were so many people like, oh, I want to understand more about this concept. So Home Care Pulse, they're amazing. You guys, if you have not signed up with them or gotten their benchmarking study, it makes a lot of sense to just do it because it will help you understand the data, and data helps you run your business, right? So they have the best benchmarking study in our industry, and they talk about the lifetime value of a client. Many of you have probably seen it and you've heard it before. We're going to talk today of how do we use this effectively so when we're making decisions inside of our business that we make strategic decisions, okay? So the data's changed through the years. Right? Years ago, 5-6 years ago, I think the lifetime value of a client was a little bit over $10,000. That number continues to increase, probably partially because bill rates are going up, but it has been increasing steadily. I think and don't quote me on this, I want to say it's increased over the last 5 years. Now the lifetime value of a client is about $15,000 in revenue. What does that mean? Okay, so what? $15,000 in revenue. It's just a little over $15,000, at least the last report that I saw. So, is that all profit? No. Do you see that $15,000 in revenue all at once? Boom, I get a client. Oh, there's all this revenue coming in, $15,000 in revenue. No. Reality is that on average, you probably see that on average over the course of about 12 months, give or take. You can look at the data in the Home Care Pulse. It shifts here and there in terms of like how long an average client lasts. Part of that is based on the mix of business and blah, 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 all this other stuff. But for now, we're going to just use $15,000 in revenue. Now, I know some of you are sitting there like, well, Greg, some of my clients are like, maybe produce $2,000 in revenue. And some of my clients produce like $200,000 in revenue. That is true, right? That is very, very true. And the average, right, the median is about 15,000. So we just use that as a number. I recognize that that number can shift. And for some of you, based on the type of business that you're doing, your lifetime value of your clients may be way higher than that. Like I have some clients that all they do is live-ins. Like they just focus on live-ins. It's good for their market, or there's a lot of opportunity in their market. They can staff them and they generate good revenue. Maybe this isn't entirely true, but the margins sometimes on live-ins might not be quite as high, but it's really, really good revenue. And the lifetime value of their clients is going to be way higher than 15,000. Okay. It's those of you that are doing a lot of short-term cases, right? Some of you maybe have a lot of short-term hospice cases, or some of you maybe have a lot of, I had one person I spoke to the other day where they were getting business from surgery centers, and those cases last like not very long, and the lifetime value of their client is not very high. And the reality is for most businesses, the hardest part of getting a case started, the hardest part of a case is usually getting the case started, right? That's where all the energy and all the effort goes into. So why do I bring this up? There's a couple things we're going to talk about and understand. Number one, you have the capacity to change the lifetime value of your client. There's lots of ways you can do that. The first part is getting strategic in terms of really identifying who your ideal client is and how you can target them. But that's not the intent of this conversation. It's number one, to understand that we can shift that, right? And there's other things we can do in terms of our customer service and keeping clients longer and, for lack of a better word, upselling our clients, not because they don't need the service, but because they do, and having some systems in place. Like I worked with a client who's doing 15 plus million in revenue, and we had a conversation about how operationally we can look for those opportunities where there's a changing condition, or someone got out of the hospital, or you just see that the needs are increasing, and we make sure we have a system and a process for making those recommendations and bumping hours up. There's so many other things that you can do, right, in terms of selling the value of being able to offer more than just bathing and dressing and et cetera. I'm not going to get into all of that, but my point is that you can ultimately increase the lifetime value of your client. You can do it strategically. You can do it with your operations and your systems. There's lots of things that you can do. Okay, your sales, when I say strategically, what I mean by is really getting clear on who that avatar is, and then your sales efforts are focused on that. One of the years we had the biggest growth. We did over $1 million in revenue growth in 1 year. And that was a key strategy, was really understanding who's my ideal client. So let's come back to lifetime value of a client. And those of you that have the intent on either A, scaling the business, or B, at some point increasing the profitability of the business. Now, here's where there's a little caveat, okay? I'm going to try to communicate this in terms that everybody understands. The truth is, you can scale the business and in the short term not be as profitable. Okay? I'll say that again. You can ultimately scale your business and in the short term not be quite as profitable. All right, I'm going to explain what that means, and we're going to go a little bit deeper in it, okay? But I want you to understand that that is possible in the short run, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, right? It doesn't mean, in fact, the opposite is true. If you can handle the cash flow minor crunch, you actually should do it if everything else is aligned and makes sense. And I'm going to talk about what things need to be aligned, right? So number one is really making sure that we're focusing on those ideal clients, okay? So let's give an example. This is the best way to do it, where you can scale the business, right, but may not be profitable. I saw another coach somewhere talking about, hey, scaling the business, the main focus is profit. It could be. It just depends on what your intention is. See, for me, my intent was to scale. I was willing to take a shorter term. It wasn't even a cash shortage. It's just I wasn't as profitable as I normally would have been because I was investing and reinvesting in my business. Okay, so I'm going to give you a perfect example of that. Okay, keep in mind, lifetime value of a client, $15,000. So for purposes of this conversation, let's come up with a number of what does that actually mean in profit to my company? Because I'm going to have to pay the caregivers. I've got some overhead, da 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 da. So I tend to use somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 in profit. All right. For most of you, that's a little bit more than net profit, and it's a lot less than your typical gross profit margins, right? So healthy business is probably gross profit margin is about 40%. What does that mean? If my gross profit margin is 40% and I bill $10, $4 goes towards gross profit, right? You take out all the expenses of caregiver wages and variable costs and things like that. It means $4 of every $10 billed goes to gross profit. Now, most of you have, you got to keep the lights on. Most of you have to have staff to service your clients. Most of you have to have things going on to keep the business alive. Maybe you have rent and things along those lines. So when you understand that there's some other fixed expenses, right? Those things are factored in before you actually get to the bottom line of net profit. All right, this is all going to make sense to you guys, okay? I promise if you just hang tight, sit there, come back to this will all make sense. And it's actually really, 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 really brilliant. It will help you if your goal and your intent is to ultimately scale your business and increase the value of your company. So this is why we do it. Why am I looking to scale the business is because I want to increase my valuation. So if I plan to sell in 3 years, 5 years, 2 years, I want to increase the valuation. Now, I get that some of you are thinking, okay, but Greg, isn't the valuation of the company based on net profit? It is. It is. And I'm going to show you how it all catches up to you in the end, where you start to create more and more net profit. And the way that that happens is because as you scale revenue, okay, as you scale revenue, right, you might have some investment or some costs in the short run. But because you're scaling revenue, the revenue and the profit in the long run will ultimately offset the investments that you're making in your business. So back to lifetime value of a client, 15,000. Let's just use for now, for simplicity, your net profit on a client is about $2,000, right? That's what the company will profit. That'll go to the bottom line. Now, in reality, as I said earlier, you don't see all of that at once. Right? You're going to see, let's just use a year, or let's just use 10 months for now because it's way easier math. So if your lifetime value of a client's 15,000 and your profit is about 2,000, what does that mean? Well, that means that every month, on average, you get one client and that brings in $200 in profit. But guess what? In month 2, it's going to bring $200 in profit. In month 3, it's going to bring $200 in profit. In month 4, it's going to bring 400, 500, 600. I'm sorry, month 5, 6, 7, 8. All of those months, it's going to bring in $200 in profit. Now, what happens when I get 10 clients, right? So when I get 10 clients, hypothetically, if all of those clients are producing on average $200 a month in profit, now I'm profiting $2,000 a month, okay? But I'm not going to stop getting new clients. So here is where the understanding the lifetime value of a client and how to use this to make decisions, okay? All right, so let's just, for simplicity, let's just say I'm going to invest in search engine optimization, pay-per-click, some sort of investment, go with the company that knows what they're doing and they can drive and generate leads. So you're like, okay, Greg, I'm investing $2,000 a month with this company. How many new clients do I have to get in order to be profitable or in order for it to be a worthwhile investment? Now, if I get one client, right? Remember, lifetime value, lifetime profit of a client, we're using $2,000. Now, in truth, it's probably going to be more than that because in reality, if you're not adding any more fixed expenses, hypothetically, you should be adding your entire gross profit margins, right? which in this case, we're going to say is 40%. So for every 10,000, hypothetically, you're adding $4,000 in profit to your company. Okay? Stick with me. You come back and watch this again, and hopefully it'll stick a little bit more. But ultimately, what you're doing is you're adding gross profit to your bottom line. The reason why I use a lower number is because eventually, as you're adding clients, you're going to get busier, you're going to get busier, you're going to get busier, and then you're going to be like, oh gosh, I need to service these clients. I need another scheduler to help me. So then you're going to need to add another fixed expense to service that higher volume of clients as you're scaling. Okay? Does this make sense? I know some of you are like, oh, this is a lot for my brain, but just bear with me. Come back to this. I'm telling you, watch this, save this video, watch it a few times, because ultimately, when you understand this concept and the strategy behind it, you guys will be able to scale your company to bigger and bigger and bigger numbers. Okay, so that is why I use 2,000 versus 4,000, right? Or if it's a $15,000, lifetime value of a client, technically, I could say every new client adds $6,000 in profit, right? Hypothetically, that's true if you don't ever have to add another fixed expense, but you will at some point. So we use 2,000, very conservative. All right, so again, come back to this example. I've invested $2,000 to work with a company that's going to help me with pay-per-click, SEO, all of those things. So if I've invested $2,000 and I'm going to pay them probably $2,000 a month. Okay, so they're getting $2,000 a month. How many clients do I need to quote unquote break even? Well, technically less than one, right? But we're going to say one because we're using this very conservative number of $2,000. So if I get one client, I break even. Now on cash flow, I'm not breaking even. Why? Because if you remember, I said the cash is going to be spread out generally over the lifetime of that client, which on average is going to be about a year. So technically, cash flow wise, I'm losing money, right? I'm losing money. I'm not losing money because of the lifetime value of a client, and I'll make that money back. But for purposes of, is this a good investment decision for me? One client a month essentially breaks even for me. Does that make sense? So one client a month breaks even for me. That's what I need to know if I'm looking to scale my company. Now, that's not enough. I don't want to just break even. So technically, if I'm making this decision, I need to see at least 10 new clients a month. Then I will feel at least decent to good about that business decision. Okay? Whatever it is that you're doing, you've got to look at it from the perspective of every new client that I get is going to add, on average, about $2,000 in profit. But here's the caveat. You've got to, in the short run, pay attention to your cash flow, right? Because on your profit and loss statement, right, you invested $2,000 in SEO and pay-per-click, and you only added one client, right? So that one client, let's just say it's an average client, that month you only profited $200 from that client. So really, in your net profit, you're showing an $1,800 loss. And you're like, Greg, how does any of this make sense? This is ridiculous. This is stupid. Well, yeah, in reality, one client's not enough. I want to see at a minimum two, right? Even in that scenario, you're like, Greg, but that's only $400 in profit, right? Two clients, on average, 200 plus profit a month. That's only $400. I'm still a net loss. And I'm like, yes, on paper. But what you're doing is you're starting to scale your company. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to fast forward, right? Because we're going to keep investing this money, $2,000 a month. But if every month we're getting 2 to 3 clients, right? If every month we're getting 2 to 3 clients, that's, let's just say for now, just to keep it simple, I'm going to say we get 3 new clients. That's $600 in profit month one, but technically it's a net loss because I gave the pay-per-click company $2,000. I only got $600 in profit back, right? But that client's going to be with you again next month. And We're going to add another 3 clients. So now where am I at? I'm at month 2, 600 in profit from all the new clients I added in month 2. And I'm at 600 in profit from all of the clients from month 1. But you're like, Greg, that's still a loss, right? I just invested 2,000 and then 2,000, and month 1, I only profited 600 from those clients, so I'm a negative 1,400, right? You're like, okay, Greg, how does this make sense? And then month two, right? Okay, so 600, so that's 1,200, Greg, and I've already, this month I invested 2,000 again, so I'm a negative for this month, 800. Like, Greg, how does this make sense? How does this make sense? Same thing with salesperson. You are not going to make money on your salesperson right away. But you can look at the Home Care Pulse data and you can see that the average agency that has a salesperson is doing X amount more in revenue. Okay? So I know there's a lot of numbers, a lot of data. Now let's go to month 3. Month 3, we get 3 more clients. It's another 600. I'm still technically at a cash flow loss, right? Still technically at a cash flow loss because I've got 9 new clients. That brings in 1,800 in profit, assuming that all the numbers are averages. More than likely, one of those clients is going to be a 24/7 or a big hour client. And you're making more profit in the short run, but we're just keeping it for averages for now. You're like, okay, Greg, still losing money. Month 3, I lost $200, right? Now, this is where the scaling starts to offset the investment, right? Month 4, you get another 3 clients. So now what are we at? We're at 2,400 in quote unquote profit from these clients, right? You invested 2,000 that month, so it put you in the profit zone, right? So you're finally, yay, I'm in profit zone. And then it keeps rolling from there, because even if you did, which I wouldn't suggest that you do, but even if you said, all right, I don't want to do this SEO pay-per-click anymore, right? So, which I would never ever suggest to do, because when we look at how we use and understand the lifetime value of a client, if I'm getting 3 clients a month, or even 2 clients a month, it is profitable. I keep doing it unless you're really in a place where cash flow is killing you, right? So now, right, I stopped pay-per-click and SEO, which I would never suggest to do. But now you've got 9 new clients because of it, right? So you've grown the company. So smart business owners, smart entrepreneurs, they look at, how do I grow and scale the company and make investments that will help me get there faster so I can scale my company? And you're like, well, Greg, if profit isn't the main thing, then why would I be doing this? Well, remember, in the short run, it's an investment in your business, right? It's an investment in your business. And when you understand this concept of lifetime value and you understand how to use it, you start making decisions from that place, right? And that's why I'm not going to go into it here. I'll probably do another video on this. Is I talk a lot about the multiplier effect. It's like little incremental improvements in multiple areas in your business when you stack it on top of each other because of the lifetime value of a client. Your company can grow and scale substantially, all right? Little incremental improvements, all right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to, quote unquote, spend more money on SEO or pay-per-click, right? I'm talking about how do we increase the number of referrals that we're getting? How do we increase our intake call to living room visit conversions and our living room visit to start of care conversions? And how do we increase the lifetime value of a client? All those things can be done without spending more money, all right? It's just being more strategic about it. But back to the pay-per-click and SEO example, right? You're investing 2,000. I don't even know what the numbers would be. Honestly, I was investing a lot less at the time. But I was investing money. I was like, okay, am I getting a return on investment? Because if I'm getting a return on investment, I am growing and scaling the company based on the knowing that the lifetime value of a client, I'm profiting at least $2,000 on a client, right? So if I get 3 and I've invested $2,000, now I know that's $6,000 in profit. I invested $2,000. I'm happy with that. I keep doing it. And then I look for another way to do that, because then I scale. And when you go to sell the company, most of you know this, but maybe not all. when you go to sell the company, eventually, right, it's going to be a multiple of profit. So let's just go back to this example. I'm not saying to do this, but let's just say at month 6, right, I say, all right, I'm not going to do SEO and pay-per-click anymore, which I would never advise you to do if you're getting a return on investment. But if you said, I'm not doing that anymore, right, so I'm not going to invest the $2,000 a month, but by that point, you've gotten, let's say, 15 new clients because of it, right? Did I do the math right? 3 is 50, 18, all right? Your profit per client is way higher. Your revenue's higher. Your profit starts to creep up where it's higher. And when you go to sell, it's a multiple. It's usually sold as a multiple of profit. So I look at it and I say, hey, month 6, I've increased my profit by about 2,000 plus a month, 5,000 plus a month. Okay. So at 5,000 plus a month, when I go to sell my business, over the course of a year, an extra $5,000 in profit is $60,000, right? And when I go to sell, if you get a multiple of profit for your sale, which is, right, usually on average in our industry, it could be about 3. So if I've profited an extra $60,000 that year, and I go to sell and I get a multiple of 3, those investments netted me, they technically netted me about, what I say, 50,000 in profit, about an extra $150,000 when I sold my company. Okay. So I hope you guys are still tracking with this. I hope you come back and watch this and actually pay attention to this, because this is like a key strategy. It's important to understand, because if you're going to plan to sell your company, we're looking at how do we scale, even if in the short run, the profit bottom line is not showing. When you understand lifetime value and you understand how investments work, and you're investing in your business so you continue to grow the company, and then eventually the growth will offset any investments that you made if you're doing it right and you're paying attention. And the multiple, the sale of your company, is significantly greater, right? A perfect example of this, Kara, who's one of my past clients, now works for my company doing some coaching with our mastermind clients. Over the course of about 2.5 years, she really worked on increasing the referrals and the conversions and all of that, the multiplier effect. I was talking about that earlier. And we figured it out. When she sold her company I think it was last year, maybe a year and a half now. Time flies, it's so fast. But the value of her company over the course of about 2 years of like investing in her growth of the company, the valuation increased by about $500,000, about close to $500,000, because in the short run, she said, all right, I'm going to invest in my growth. And she started working on getting more referrals, converting more referrals, and just kept investing in her team and training and learning. And she just improved her numbers. When we looked at her profit improvements over the course of I think it was about 2.5 years, the value of her company increased by $500,000. This is the power of what I'm talking about, okay? This is the power of understanding 2 things. 1, the lifetime value of a client and how to use that to scale your company. And then number 2, the multiplier effect, right? Which I will do another training on that at some point. But when you understand those things, it can really change the game for you, help you increase the valuation of your company. And I realize for some of you watching this is kind of higher level stuff, but it doesn't matter. You can be an entry level when you understand this. I learned this from one of my mentors, and it changed the game for me. And I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. And once I dug into it and I started to learn, oh, this really is a thing. It's really a thing. So that's all I've got, everyone. Have an amazing rest of your day. I hope you found this helpful and useful. If you did, comment in the chat box. Let me know that you saw this, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.